Hello students, today we're going to look at 9.5 factoring trinomials in the form of x squared plus bx plus c. X squared plus bx plus c, it's important to know that this number is the b and that last constant is the c. And so when we factor, what we're looking for is two binomials that multiply together to equal this trinomial x squared plus 3x plus 2. And there's a few little hints and steps that I want to take you. In order to factor this, I've got to come up with the two binomials. So I'm going to go ahead and put my two sets of parentheses. Now what times what equals x squared? That would be just x times x. So my first term in both of them is going to be the x. And now what I have to do is I have to figure out, I need two factors of c that add up to b. So what are the factors of 2? That would be 1 and 2. Those are the only choices. Now do 1 and 2 add up to 3? Absolutely. So it would be plus 1 and plus 2. Now it doesn't matter if you put plus 2 first and then plus 1. The order doesn't matter as long as you have x plus 1 times x plus 2. So let's move over to the second one. We know that 7 is b and 10 is c. So I'm coming up with two binomial factors. So the first is what times what equals a squared. Your only option is a times a. So now I've got to come up with two factors of 10 that add up to 7. Well, with 10, I can do 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. So which of those add up to 7? Well, it'd actually be 2 and 5. So a plus 2 and a plus 7. And if I went back and did FOIL, I would figure out that a plus 2 times a plus 7, which is not a 7, it should actually be a 5. So a plus 2 times the quantity of a plus 5. When I go back and multiply that out, you would get a squared plus 7a plus 10. In our last set of problems, we had two pluses. Well, now we have a minus and a plus. So we're still going to do exactly the same thing, but I know in order to have two factors of 3 that add up to a negative, both of these factors have to be negative. Because negative times negative is positive, but negative plus negative is also negative. So I'm going to still come up with two factors, or first of all, what times itself equals x squared, that would be x, and give me two factors of 3 that add up to negative 4. Well, the only two factors of 3 are 1 and 3. Well, I know 1 plus 3 doesn't equal 4, but negative 1 plus negative 3 equals 4, so it would be negative 1 and negative 3, which would be the solution. Because negative 1 times negative 3 is positive, and negative 1 plus negative 3 is negative 4. Let's slide over here to t squared minus 8t plus 12. This one's a little bit more difficult because 12 has several factors. Again, b is negative and c is positive, so that means both of my binomials are going to have a minus in them. So t squared is t times t, so I'm going to start with the t, and then now I've got to figure out what factors of 12 will add up to negative 8. So my factors of 12 would be negative 1 and negative 12, negative 2 and negative 6, negative 3 and negative 4. Well, when I add those pairs, which one adds up to negative 8? That would be negative 2 and negative 6. So t minus 2, t minus 6 would be the factored form of t squared minus 8t plus 12. Well, now we're going to look at a couple of examples where b is positive and c is negative. Well, in that case, in order to get a negative for c, I've got to have a positive times a negative. So I'm going to have one positive, one negative that add up to whatever b is. And in this case, b is 1. Got to remember that b equals 1. So I'm going to start with my two sets of parentheses. What times what equals m squared? That would be m. And then I've got to come up with two factors of negative 20 that add up to 1. So let's look at our factors of negative 20. That would be 1 and negative 20, or negative 1 and 20. We could have 2 and negative 10, or negative 2 and 10. Or we could have 4 and negative 5, or negative 4 and 5. And those are all the factors of 20. Now I've got to see which ones add up to positive 1. Well, we can't be that one. Can't be that one. 2 and negative 10 is negative 8. Negative 2 plus 10 is positive 8. So 4 plus negative 5 is negative 1. And negative 4 plus 5 is positive 1. So I'm going to have a negative 4 and a positive 5. So m minus 4, m plus 5. Now, it doesn't matter. You could put m plus 5 first and m minus 4 second. Doesn't matter as long as you have m minus 4 and m plus 5. So let's look over at the next one. W squared plus 6w minus 16. So set up my two sets of parentheses. I know that it's going to be w times w to get w squared. And now I have w times w, so I've got to come up with two factors of negative 16 that add up to 6. So what are my factors of negative 16? I have negative 1 and 16, or 1 and negative 16. Well, those don't add up to 6. And then I have negative 2 and 8. Ding, 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 ding. Because negative 2 plus 8 is positive 6. So there I am. Negative 2, positive 6, because negative, that's supposed to be 8, because negative 2 times positive 8 is negative 16, and negative 2 plus 8 is positive 6, so my two binomials would be w minus 2 and w plus 8. Well, now that we know how to factor, we're going to look at how do we solve the equation after I'm factoring. And this goes back to what we did not too long ago in 9.4, is solving the equations. So I've got x squared minus 3x minus 18 equals 0. The first thing I have to do is factor into my two binomials and let that equal 0. So same process of factoring. What equals x squared? That would be x times x. And then now I've got to have two factors of negative 18 that add up to negative 3. So let's look at my factors of negative 18, and I'm going to put it over here because I still have an equation to work out. So I have negative 1 and 18, which does not add up to negative 3. And I have 1 and negative 18, which does not add up to negative 3. What about 3 and negative 6? Well, 3 and negative 6, 3 times negative 6 is negative 18, and 3 plus negative 6 is negative 3. So I know that those are my two factors, positive 3 and negative 6. Positive 3, negative 6. Because 3 times negative 6 is negative 18, 3 minus 6 is negative 3, and there we have our two binomial factors. So now to solve the equation, I set up two different equations. X plus 3 equals 0, or x minus 6 equals 0. So x equals negative, that wasn't pretty, x equals negative 3 or positive 6. So the solutions to this equation would be negative 3 or 6 to make that a true statement. For the last example, we have the equation a squared plus 5a equals 50. Well, this isn't in trinomial form yet, so I've got to fix that before I can factor. So I have to move the 50 to the other side so I can create that trinomial that I can factor. And when I do, I get a squared plus 5a minus 50, because when the 50 comes over the equal sign, it becomes negative, equals 0. Now I have a trinomial, and I can factor it into two binomials. So again, I have to come up with the two factors of negative 50 that add up to positive 5. So negative 50, I could do 1 and 50 and negative 1, but it doesn't work. So let's look at maybe 5 and 10. So how about negative 5 and positive 10? Negative 5 times positive 10 is negative 50, and negative 5 plus 10 is positive 5, so there are my factors. So I have a times a is a squared, and then minus 5 and plus 10 equals 0. Let me just get all that out of the way. So there are my two binomial factors. It equals 0. So now I have to figure out, well, what does A equal in order for the entire equation to equal 0? So each binomial has to 0. A minus 5 equals 0. So A equals 5. Or A plus 10 equals 0. So A equals negative 10. So my solution is 5 or negative 10 for solving the equations. Again, if you're given it here, all three terms have to be on the same side of the equal sign before you can do your factoring. So here are your 4 practice problems for this weekend. Number 1 is x squared plus 11x plus 18, so find the two binomial factors. Number 2, x squared minus 14x plus 45, find two binomial factors. Number 3 is x squared plus 6x minus 72. So find the two binomial factors. And then the last one is to solve the equation x squared minus 5x equals 24. Remember that you have to move the 24 to the other side to make it equal 0 before you can factor and solve. So do all 4 of these problems, take a picture of them, the work as well, take a picture of them, and submit it through Edmodo.